The Architect's Revenge, a triple maternity against the empire of her ex-husband. High-level drama alert. Before you dive into this epic tale of resilience and social resurrection, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Ava Sterling's life is about to prove that a mother doesn't just survive, she anchors. Chapter 1. The Signature of Betrayal. The conference room overlooking Park Avenue reeked of polished mahogany and cold betrayal. A sleek Mont Blanc pen rested between the trembling fingers of Ava Sterling, an architect on the rise, while her lawyer whispered, "All we need is your signature." Across the glittering table, her soon-to-be ex-husband, Marcus Thorne, leaned back in his chair, adjusting the cuff of his bespoke suit. The Patek Philippe on his wrist ticked louder than her own heartbeat. He didn't look at her. Not once. Outside, New York City was shrouded in a thick November fog, the lights of Midtown blurred by the relentless drizzle. Ava's reflection in the window was a pale ghost, 6 months pregnant, clinging to the last shred of dignity she could afford. Marcus's voice cut the silence, soft yet razor-sharp. "Let's keep it clean, Ava. I have a flight to Geneva this afternoon." He didn't mention the reason. Everyone already knew. The tabloids had been whispering about the Vogue cover model, Sienna Reed, for months. Ava pressed the pen to the paper. Her signature bled onto the white page like an open wound. A single tear fell onto the ink, blurring the word divorce. The rustle of her lawyer collecting papers felt like nails in a coffin. Marcus rose, sliding his custom iPhone into his pocket. "Take care," he said casually, like someone dismissing a waiter. She wanted to scream. Instead, she smiled. The kind of smile people use when they've lost everything and can't afford to crumble. When the door closed behind him, she exhaled, shaky, silent, final. The city outside didn't stop. Taxis blared. Sirens wailed. Life went on. But for Ava, time stopped right there, in that room full of contracts and ghosts. Her lawyer hesitated. "Do you need me to call a car?" Ava shook her head. "No, I'll walk." She tucked the signed documents into her worn leather tote bag, grabbed her old MacBook, and stepped out into the damp drizzle. The rain tasted of metal, almost bitter. She walked past the luxury storefronts, Tiffany, Chanel, Hermes, each window reflecting a version of the life that used to be hers. Her hand brushed against her swollen belly, feeling a faint kick. "We'll be fine," she whispered to the baby. "I promise." Then, across the street, the flashes erupted. A photographer shouted, "Mrs. Thorne, is it true he's marrying Sienna next month?" Ava froze. For the first time, she realized the divorce wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of her public humiliation. And the entire world was already watching. Chapter 2. The Fire Baptism and the Triple Alarm. The wedding photos flooded every newsfeed before Ava finished her morning coffee. Marcus Thorne, the visionary tech CEO, and Sienna Reed, the runway darling, beamed beneath a crystal chandelier inside the Plaza Hotel. The captions read like poetry to the cruel, the power couple of the year. Sienna's gown glittered with hand-sewn crystals. Marcus's tuxedo was perfectly pressed, his eyes full of pride. They looked like the kind of people the world adores, untouchable, brilliant, and heartless. Ava sat in her small rented room in the East Village, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that barely covered her stomach. The glow of her old MacBook Air cast a cold light on her tired face. Every tabloid headline felt like a slap. A knock on the door broke her trance. It was Stella Davies, her college roommate, now a sharp-tongued legal aide who refused to let Ava drown in silence. Stella carried 2 Starbucks coffees and a brown paper bag. "I brought breakfast," Stella said softly. "And the news. Have you seen it?" Ava nodded, her voice a bare whisper. He married her, the same week our divorce papers were finalized. Stella exhaled. Classic Marcus. He thinks this makes him untouchable, but the law doesn't forget that easily. He still owes prenatal coverage under the marital health clause. Ava managed a weak smile. He'll find a way around it. Then we'll find a way to corner him, Stella said, placing the coffee in her hand. Drink up. You're keeping 3 lives alive now. Ava looked down at her belly, feeling a gentle movement beneath her palm. 3 tiny heartbeats dependent on her. Interactive question. What would you do in Ava's place? Would you accept defeat silently or pursue Stella's aggressive legal strategy? Comment with your action plan. She couldn't sleep that night. The rain hammered against the window, constant and cruel. She scrolled through her phone again. Photos of the wedding from the same ballroom where Marcus had once told her he loved her. The comments below were merciless. Upgrade achieved. That poor ex-wife must be fuming. The next morning, she went to a part-time editing job at a small media agency in the financial district. During lunch, she sat on a bench facing the One World Trade Center, biting into a cold sandwich. Her reflection shone faintly in the building's glass. Tired eyes, messy hair, a body both fragile and strong. She pulled out a notebook and began to write. I will rebuild, even if it kills me. Just as she snapped the notebook shut, her phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number popped up. You should stop showing up where you're not wanted. He's moved on. You should too. No name. But Ava didn't need one. The words smelled of sienna. Perfumed cruelty, wrapped in digital ink. She deleted the message and whispered, You'll see. When she stood up, the city felt different, colder, sharper, but alive. She could almost hear New York whispering its challenge, crumble or fight back. As she walked away, a headline flashed on the billboard in Times Square. Marcus Thorne and Sienna Reed on honeymoon in the Hamptons. Ava didn't stop to look. She just kept walking, her hand on her belly, her eyes forward. Because for the first time, revenge didn't feel like hatred. It felt like survival. Chapter 3. The Rain-Soaked Gentleman and the Medical Revelation. It was close to midnight when the last subway train rattled through the wet streets of Brooklyn. A city that never slept had turned gray and weary, much like Ava Sterling herself. Her shift at the editing studio had run late again, and when she emerged into the rain, the neon lights reflected in the puddles like broken dreams. She clutched her worn leather tote to her chest, her breath visible in the cool air. 6.5 months pregnant, exhausted and alone, she was surviving one day at a time. The train car was nearly empty. A man in a dark overcoat sat near the rear, reading something on his iPad. Ava slumped into a seat, massaging her swollen ankles. Midway across the Manhattan Bridge, the train jolted violently. A wheel hit a flat spot, and Ava's world tilted for a second. Pain tightened in her lower abdomen. "Oh no," she whispered, grabbing the seat. Before she could react, the boy in the rear was already up. He moved quickly, calm but focused. "You need air," he said in a firm voice. He shrugged off his coat and knelt beside her. "Breathe, slow and deep. I'm Ethan Miller." His tone was professional, reassuring. Someone used to taking control. The conductor stopped the train near a station. The rain was coming down harder. Ethan offered his umbrella, guiding her carefully. "You shouldn't be traveling alone this late," he said, as they waited for a taxi beneath the flickering lamppost. He asked no prying questions, passed no judgment on her trembling hands. He just stood there, holding the umbrella over both of them, letting the rain soak his shoulders. When the taxi arrived, he helped her inside. "Hospital?" the driver asked. Ava nodded weakly. Ethan pulled a business card from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. "If they won't admit you, call this number. Dr. Chen at New York Presbyterian. He owes me a favor. Ava blinked, confused. Why are you helping me? Ethan hesitated. Because I've seen that look before. Someone trying to hold it all together. His voice softened. No one should have to fight alone at midnight. Before she could thank him, he closed the taxi door. The rain blurred his face as the cab pulled away, leaving him standing beneath the lamppost's glare, coatless and silent. At the hospital, they told her the contractions were stress-induced, false labor, but a warning. The nurse smiled kindly. You need rest, sweetheart, and someone looking out for you. Ava nodded, clutching Ethan's card. Ethan Miller, Miller Holdings. The name sounded familiar. A whisper of another world, one she thought she'd left behind. When she got home near dawn, the city was still wet and quiet. She placed the card on her nightstand beside her sonogram picture. 3 tiny heartbeats, 3 reasons to survive. Before drifting off, she opened her old laptop and Googled his name. The screen lit up with headlines. Ethan Miller, the solitary billionaire who disappeared after wife's death. Ava stared at the photo, his face in a tuxedo, standing next to a woman who looked carved by sunlight. Her stomach churned. The man who had helped her tonight wasn't just kind. He was powerful, and fate had just linked her life to his without either of them knowing it yet. The next morning, she sat in the waiting room of the community clinic in the East Village. The nurse finally called her name, and within minutes, Ava was lying on the exam table, eyes fixed on the monitor as the sonographer moved the cold gel over her skin. Things look very busy, the woman murmured with a slight smile. Ms. Sterling, did anyone tell you that you are expecting triplets? The words hit her like a thunderclap. Triplets? Ava's mouth went dry. Yes, 3, the nurse said, adjusting the screen. 3 tiny heartbeats flickered like miniature stars. You'll need close monitoring and a lot of rest. This kind of pregnancy is high risk. Ava's pulse raced. She was already struggling to pay rent and stay healthy. Now she had 3 babies growing inside her. That night, a sharp pain seized her abdomen. She gasped, spilling her tea. Stella jumped up. Hospital now! Hours later, Ava sat in the hospital hallway, exhausted, with papers in her lap. Her phone vibrated with a new message from an unknown number. If you're smart, you'll stop dragging this out. He's not coming back for you. Sienna again. Then, a nurse approached with a clipboard. Ms. Sterling, you have a visitor. Ava frowned. A visitor? The nurse pointed to the glass doors. Standing there, in a gray suit and rain-damp hair, was Ethan Miller. He held a small bouquet of white lilies. Simple, understated. How did you know I was here? She asked as he approached. He smiled faintly. You said you might need that doctor's number. I thought I'd check if you actually called. And just like that, for the first time in months, Ava felt the world stop spinning. Chapter 4. The Triplets' Haven and the Pact of Respect. A week after her hospital scare, Ava tried to return to some version of normalcy. She worked from home for the agency, editing short videos on her old MacBook Air, pausing every few minutes to catch her breath. Her doctor had told her to rest, but she had rent to pay, and her insurance didn't cover much. That morning, she decided to walk to the bodega. Reaching the building lobby, she pressed the elevator button and waited. The door opened, and her heart froze. Inside was Sienna Reed. She looked even more unreal up close. Perfect hair, flawless skin, a designer coat that probably cost more than Ava's yearly rent. Beside her, a stylist carried garment bags and a young assistant. For a second, time stopped. Sienna's eyes swept over Ava's pregnant belly, and a smirk played on her lips. Oh, she said, her voice dripping with sugar. You're Ava, right? Marcus's ex? Ava nodded silently. Sienna stepped closer, whispering loud enough for the others to hear. You look radiant. I mean, For someone who's doing this alone. The elevator opened again, and Sienna stepped out, her perfume lingering like expensive poison. "Good luck, darling," she added, tapping her diamond ring against the railing before walking away. The humiliation stung deeper than any headline or whisper. Ava left the building and walked to a nearby Starbucks. She grabbed her notebook and wrote, "The pain doesn't kill you. It teaches you who you are." Just then, a black Mercedes S-Class pulled up near the curb. A familiar figure stepped out, holding a paper bag and an umbrella. Ethan Miller. He spotted her through the window, hesitated, then walked into the coffee shop. "May I?" he asked, indicating the empty seat across from her. "I had a meeting nearby," he said, setting down the bag. "And I thought you might need something other than hospital food." Inside the bag were muffins and herbal tea. "I saw the photos of your ex's wedding," Ethan added cautiously. "They looked expensive." Ava laughed for the first time in weeks, a dry, shaky sound. "Yeah, he's good at expensive." Ethan tilted his head. "Then maybe it's time you learned to be good at survival." The final blow from Marcus arrived in a letter, a financial settlement and non-disclosure agreement. He wanted to buy her silence for a modest sum. Ava read the clause about irreversible waiver of moral claims and felt the temptation drown her. That night, she received an anonymous text. "If you really cared about your babies, you'd stop embarrassing their father." Something inside Ava snapped. She tore the paper in half, then again, until the pieces fell like confetti. "He won't silence me," she said out loud. "Not this time." The next day, she and Stella sued Marcus for the triplets' full medical coverage, demanding the court compel him to pay for his negligence. The night of the delivery came at 2:47 a.m., with sharp, rhythmic pain. When Ava crumpled on the stairs, Ethan was there, at her door. "The nurse called me," he said swiftly. "You weren't answering your phone. Let's go." Hours later, Ava awoke in the recovery room. The world was silent. Then came a sound. 3 faint cries. Delicate, yet real. Nina, Grace, and Eli were born. Ethan appeared beside her bed, his shirt wrinkled and eyes bloodshot. He held 3 tiny knitted caps. "They're perfect," he whispered. "Why are you doing all this for me?" Ava asked. Ethan hesitated, then said softly, "Because I've been where you are. I watched someone I love fight for life while everyone else turned away. I couldn't save her, but maybe this time I can help someone else." His honesty disarmed her. 2 days later, Ethan offered Ava a place to stay, a guest house on his family's property in Greenwich, Connecticut. Private, quiet, and with access to 24-hour medical care. "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's logistics. If you say yes, I need rules, clear ones." Together, they hammered them out in the hospital cafeteria. She would pay what she could, when she could. She would remain independent, responsible for her professional decisions. No emotional obligations, no blurred lines. 2 days later, a black car collected her from the hospital. Charlotte Miller, Ethan's sister, met her at the door. "Welcome. We've set up the nursery." Ava walked in and froze. 3 bassinets sat side by side, sunlight pouring over the white curtains. It didn't feel like a stranger's house. It felt like safety. Chapter 5. The Shield of Public Sympathy. Spring slipped into New York like a sigh of relief. It had been nearly a year since that first night on the subway. The triplets were thriving. Nina, Grace, and Eli filled the house with music. But then, the photo that set everything on fire dropped. A grainy, out-of-focus shot of a man in an overcoat holding a tiny baby outside Presbyterian Hospital. Gossip sites identified the man as Ethan Miller and the woman as Ava Sterling, Marcus Thorne's ex-wife. The headline read, "Mercer's ex finds new fortune." Ethan came over to the guest house. "I've contacted my publicist. We'll issue a statement clarifying you are under medical care through my foundation." "I don't want pity," Ava snapped. Charlotte joined them. We'll announce the Miller Foundation is sponsoring neonatal care for single mothers. That reframes the story. It makes you a cause, not a scandal. The press release was professional, true, but the silence didn't stop. It just redirected. Marcus Thorne saw the news. "She's playing the victim card," he growled. Sienna, for her part, sneered. "Maybe she's better at this than you thought." Ava, holding the babies, looked out the window. Ethan was on the threshold. "You didn't ask for it," he whispered. "But you get to choose what happens next." Interactive question. Do you think Ava is wrong to use the social cause strategy to shield herself from the media, or is it a necessary move for survival? Share your ethical opinion. Months later, the Miller Foundation Gala was held. It was Ava's first public appearance. She was radiant, wearing an elegant black gown. Sienna Reed cornered her. "Well, if it isn't Mrs. Miller," she said, her voice brimming with fake sweetness. "I must say, Ethan, you have a type. Brave, broken women with big eyes." "You're right, Sienna," Ava said serenely. "It takes bravery to start over. You should try it sometime." Minutes later, the host called Ethan to the stage. "Tonight," he began, "I'm reminded that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through compassion, through courage, through rebuilding after the world discards you." He turned slightly, looking at Ava. "And tonight, I dedicate this moment to those who prove that dignity and grace are stronger than scandal." The audience erupted in applause. For the first time, the world wasn't laughing at her. They were applauding her strength. It was her quiet comeback, written one headline at a time. Chapter 6. The Final Battle for the Narrative. The morning after the gala, the headlines were kind. But Ava's victories never came without a shadow. Marcus Thorne was suing Ava for partial custody of the triplets. "He's doing it to hurt me," Ava whispered. "He's never even seen them, not once." Stella went into action. "It's a publicity stunt. He's trying to generate public goodwill before his company's IPO next quarter. If he looks like a devoted father, investors trust him more. He's using our children as PR props. Yes, and we're going to make him regret it." In the courtroom, Marcus looked slick and charming. But when Stella presented the evidence, his confidence shattered. Emails showing Marcus's total lack of contact, unpaid medical bills, and most damning, a voicemail he'd left in anger months ago. "You think those kids are going to change anything? They're your problem, not mine," Marcus's lawyer objected. But the damage was done. The judge ruled full custody for the mother, with limited supervised visits pending review. Stepping out of the courthouse, a reporter shouted, "Mrs. Sterling, are you denying the children their father?" Ava paused, turned, and looked straight into the camera. "I am protecting them from what their father became." That clip played for days. It was the sound of a woman refusing to be a victim. 2 months later, Marcus went even further. Ethan discovered Marcus was trying to bond his debt-ridden company to a huge Langley Holdings acquisition deal. It was a trap to wash his debt using the Miller name. He's planning this. The gallery, the charity, everything. It was a lure. He's using the Miller name to wash his debt. Ethan and Ava acted fast. They leaked documents proving Marcus's financial fraud. At an investor dinner, Marcus's phone vibrated. The Wall Street Journal headline read, "Thorne Enterprises under investigation for financial misconduct." The color drained from his face. Ethan leaned in. "You built your empire on lies, Marcus. Consider this your eviction notice from my city." Chapter 7. Victory, Peace, and the New Beginning. The Marcus Thorne scandal collapsed. He sued Ava for defamation, claiming she had fabricated evidence. The trial was Marcus's last attempt to turn Ava into the villain. Stella presented the truth. A voice recording of Marcus was played. "She's too naive to understand numbers anyway." The defamation suit was dismissed. A week later, the Wall Street Journal published a statement from Marcus Thorne. "I apologize to Ava Sterling Miller for my false claims and past conduct. She acted with integrity. I did not." Ava read the newspaper, folded it, and whispered, "That's the only signature of his I'll keep." A year later, Ava's life was the peace she'd craved. Ethan proposed in the garden where he'd given her the lilies. Instead of a diamond, he gave her a simple platinum band engraved with the initials NGE, Nina, Grace, Eli. They married with only 5 guests. At the annual Miller Foundation Gala, Ava made her debut as a wife. Marcus and Sienna, whose career had tanked, confronted her. "Still making scenes, I see," Marcus said. "I am thanking you for surviving you," Ava said, pulling out the original fraud documents. "You falsified this during our marriage. I kept it. The SEC has it now." The confrontation was the last the world witnessed. Ava's documentary, The Mothers Who Stayed, premiered to critical acclaim. She became the executive producer of the Netflix series, telling stories of women who refused to break. On the triplets' 3rd birthday, Ava was in her Greenwich home, by the fireplace. "You know what I want now?" she asked Ethan. "What?" "A foundation for single mothers. Real help. Housing, education, childcare. Something that changes lives, not just headlines. Then we'll build it together." Ava kissed him. She was no longer fighting. She was free. She and Ethan had turned pain into purpose, betrayal into love, and humiliation into a legacy. The story of Ava Sterling Miller is proof that sometimes survival is only the beginning. Call to action. If this story of an architect who designed her own happy ending inspires you, hit the like button, share this video, and tell us in the comments below. What is the strongest foundation you've ever had to build in your own life? Chapter 8. The Fire of the New Foundation. 5 years after the final confrontation at the gala, Ava Sterling Miller was no longer a scandal celebrity. She was a force for change. The documentary, The Mothers Who Stayed, was globally acclaimed, and Ava used her platform to launch the Compass Foundation, dedicated to providing housing, legal support, and professional mentorship to single mothers. The foundation's flagship project was The Haven, an affordable, self-sustaining housing complex in a developing neighborhood of Queens, New York, designed by young, ethical architects. It wasn't charity, it was an investment in dignity. The morning of the groundbreaking ceremony, the excitement was palpable. The triplets, Nina, Grace, and Eli, now 8 years old, zipped around energetically, dressed in small reflective vests and hard hats. Stella Davies, the former legal aid turned foundation chief legal officer, stood next to Ava, beaming. Ethan watched from the side, the pride in his eyes an anchor for Ava. "This place will be a base, Stella," Ava said, feeling the sacred weight of the golden shovel she held. "A place where women like me can catch their breath before they start running." But peace was fleeting. As Ava was about to thrust the shovel into the soil, an unmarked black car screeched to a halt. A man in an expensive suit, Mr. Grant, an attorney known for representing shady real estate interests, stepped out with a folder. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller." Grant's voice was polished and cold. "Your project is stalled." Ava frowned. "What does that mean?" "We have all the permits." "Indeed. But we have acquired the adjacent lot. And, according to an old easement, your planned underground renewable energy cabling crosses our new property without consent. My client demands a change to your entire structural design for The Haven." The move was obvious, a deliberate attempt to halt the project, to force the foundation to pay an exorbitant sum to buy peace. The murmurs in the crowd escalated into an anxious buzz. "Who is your client, Mr. Grant?" Ava asked, her voice low and dangerously calm. Grant smiled with familiar arrogance. "A discreet investor who wishes not to be identified. I'll only tell you that he has been watching your legacy with great interest." Ava needed no further hints. There was only one man whose resentment and desire for control transcended jail: Marcus Thorne. Though he was serving time for fraud, his contacts and dirty money were still his weapon. It was a low blow, an attempt to taint her triumph. Interactive question. If you were Ava, would you accept the stall to avoid a public scandal, or expose Marcus's sabotage immediately to the media? Comment with your attack strategy. Chapter 9. The Design Immune to Vengeance. The ceremony was cancelled. The euphoria turned into cold determination. That afternoon, the conference table at the Compass Foundation office was filled with blueprints and legal documents. Ethan sat, his brow furrowed. "It's a textbook tactic, Ava, trying to force you into a ransom payment. Do you want the Miller Holdings legal team to step in? We can crush him." "No, Ethan," Ava said firmly. "Marcus wants us to use your power, so he can headline that I'm hiding behind your money. This is my battle." She turned to Stella. "Stella, we need to find out who Grant's client is, but we're not going to fight in court. We're going to fight on the architectural blueprint." Ava, the silenced architect, engaged her mind. She recalled a crucial lesson learned in her darkest days: limitation forces creativity. She spent the night in her studio, not sleeping, but designing. It wasn't about finding an alternate route for the cables. It was about eliminating the need to cross Grant's property. The next morning, she gathered her architecture team. "The Grant Group has given us a limitation," Ava declared. "And a limitation is a gift. We are redesigning. I want every building in the Haven to be completely off the central grid. Solar power, urban wind turbines, and a battery storage system for every single unit. The Haven will not just be self-sustaining, it will be a microgrid immune to any external easement." The idea was brilliant, yet expensive and risky. It would mean a massive investment in technology. "The cost, Ava?" Stella asked. "The cost of dignity," Ava replied. "But we'll turn it into our biggest advantage. The microgrid will make the Haven a unique project in New York, attracting ethical investors and skyrocketing the entire concept's value." Chapter 10. The Master Stroke. Ava called a new press conference at the construction site, with the New York sun shining on the raw land. Attorney Grant was there, smirking, expecting the announcement of a legal battle. Ava walked up to the podium, the microphone glistening. "A week ago, the Compass Foundation faced an attempt at sabotage," Ava began, looking directly at Grant. "A maneuver of legal harassment to stall a project of dignity." The crowd stirred. Ava continued, never naming Marcus, but clearly pointing the finger at the culprits. "They wanted us to fight in court. They wanted us to pay a ransom. But I don't pay extortionists. I out-strategize them." She paused, and a large banner with the new design was unveiled behind her. "The Compass Microgrid Project. I announce today that the Haven project is not only not stalled, it is evolving. We have redesigned the complex to be a 100% self-sufficient energy microgrid. We don't need anyone's cables. We don't need anyone's property. And Mr. Grant, your client no longer has any leverage over our destiny." Ava looked at Grant, whose smirk had vanished. "In fact, the lot your client purchased, which blocked our original cabling, is now merely a dead-end, obsolete property with no access to the community renewable energy benefits we are creating." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Grant, defeated, turned and left, the figure of a well-deserved failure. Ava won the battle not with lawyers or money, but with the pure force of her creative genius. She had transformed the poison of vengeance into the catalyst for her greatest innovation. She had proven that the only way to escape a trap is to build an entirely new reality. Conclusion and final legacy. The Compass Microgrid project was completed 3 years later, a triumph of sustainable architecture and resilience. Ava was hailed not just for her spirit, but for her ability to innovate under extreme pressure. Marcus Thorne, still in jail, heard about the defeat. His final attempt at sabotage only served to finance and cement his ex-wife's legend. Ava Sterling Miller sat on the Haven's rooftop, looking out at the city, with Ethan beside her. "I thought the battle for pride ended with Marcus," Ava whispered. "His battle for pride ended. But yours, Ava, is the battle for legacy. And your legacy is proof that even a single mother, with nothing but a pen and an idea, can remodel the city and change the rules." She smiled. Her story, once marked by humiliation, was now a blueprint of hope. And you, what would you do if the poison of the past threatened your future? Would you pay it off or turn it into your biggest asset? Call to action. Comment below. If this story of ingenuity and survival inspires you, like this video and subscribe for more. Chapter 11. The Request from the Desert. The success of the Compass Foundations, the Haven Project, resonated far beyond U.S. borders. Ava's self-sufficient microgrid became a case study in universities and international forums. She was no longer Marcus Thorne's ex-wife. She was the visionary architect who proved that ethics was the best investment strategy. 7 years after the divorce was signed, Ava, now 42, was at the Foundation's NYC headquarters, an office full of light and blueprints. Nina, Grace, and Eli, now 10 years old, often came after school, doing their homework at a communal drafting table, learning about structure and sustainability. One afternoon, a high-level email landed on Ava's desk. It was from the government of the Republic of Mali, a West African country struggling with desertification and water scarcity. The request was ambitious and desperate. They needed the Compass Foundation to design a sustainable refugee city on the edge of the Sahara, a community that could house 50,000 people displaced by climate change, self-sufficient in both water and energy. The project was the antithesis of a luxurious skyscraper. It was a test of fire for the Foundation's principles. Ava shared the request with Ethan and Stella. "It's the opportunity we always wanted," Ava said, her eyes gleaming. "To apply the Haven's technology where it's needed most, the desert. We can use our solar panels and deep well water extraction technology." "The issue isn't the engineering, Ava," Ethan cut in, his voice grave. "The issue is geopolitics. The funding is coming from a United Arab Emirates consortium. Miller Holdings has brokered deals there before. They are strict, and the risk of the financing being tied to non-ethical interests is very high. The money isn't clean, Ava." Stella, the lawyer, nodded. "Also, the legal infrastructure in Mali is unstable. If we build there and the government shifts, we could lose the entire investment. And worse, compromise the community we build." Ava faced a dilemma far more complex than personal revenge. The risk was real. The humanitarian reward was immense. Interactive question. If you were Ava, would you take on a project with such high ethical and political risk, even if the humanitarian need is extreme? Or would you prioritize the Foundation's stability? Comment with your strategic choice. Chapter 12. The Desert Strategy and the Family Vote. Ava did not make an immediate decision. She took a week to study the geology, the politics, and, most importantly, the financial flow from the Emirates. She discovered that, indeed, most of the funding came from a holding company with shady connections to the water trade, whose real aim might be to control the country's subterranean water resources. "If we build the city, we give them access to those aquifers," Ava explained to Stella. "My water extraction technology would be their weapon. We cannot be complicit in water privatization." "So we decline?" Stella asked. "No," Ava said, her mind already in design mode. "We are going to do what we do best, redesign the trap." Ava's plan was so bold it required the approval of Ethan, and, symbolically, her children. the heart of her moral compass. Ava met with her triplets in the garden, under the jasmine pergola where she and Ethan were married. She showed them the blueprints of the Mali city. "Kids, this is the most important city I will ever build," Ava said. "But the bad guys want to use our water technology for their own gain. What do we do?" Nina, always the pragmatic one, spoke first. "If you don't give them the water, they don't need to come." Eli, the dreamer, looked at the drawing of the solar panels. "Mom, the sun belongs to everyone, not just them." Grace, the peacemaker, suggested, "Can we make the water, but make it so they can't steal it?" The answer was there, simple and brilliant, dictated by innocence. "You're right," Ava said, hugging them. "We are not going to build a microgrid for energy. We are going to build a distributed desalination macrogrid." The plan was this. The water would not be drawn from subterranean aquifers, but taken from the Atlantic Ocean and desalinated. The city would be designed not as an extraction point, but as a coastal generation line, using solar power to create potable water and pump it to inland communities in a decentralized way. The Foundation's technology would focus on production, not control. The refugee city would become a green belt of water production that defied the aquifer speculators. Ethan, listening to the idea, smiled proudly. "That is brilliant, Ava. You take away their raison d'etre, but you give them the need. They'll have to invest because they need to show the world they're helping, but you will control the technology." The Compass Foundation accepted the project, with one non-negotiable contract clause. The foundation would retain all intellectual property rights and operational control over the water infrastructure for the first 20 years. Chapter 13. The Legacy of the Dune and the Wave. The project in Mali, renamed Cloud City, was a monumental success. Ava spent the next few years traveling, facing heat, bureaucracy, and political instability with the same calm she used in the hospital when her children were born. She designed housing using traditional sand and salt building techniques, creating an oasis that was both modern and deeply rooted in local culture. The desalinizadora, powered by Eli's solar panels and built with Nina's geometric precision, became an engineering marvel. Grace, the peacemaker, oversaw the establishment of the schools and community centers. The legacy of the Compass Foundation was sealed in the desert. Ava had not just won her own battle. She had proven that her model of integrity worked on a global scale. And as for Marcus Thorne and Sienna Reed, the rumor of their collapse was a distant echo. Marcus, after his release, tried to rebuild, but his name was financial poison. Sienna, lost to social media irrelevance, couldn't find sponsors. The real ending for Ava came on a quiet day in Connecticut. Eli, now an architecture student, showed Ava the design for a new building that incorporated the desalinizadora. "I call it the bulwark, Mom," Eli said. "It's to protect the city from storms, but also from greed." Ava smiled. Her son had understood the lesson. "Your father told me that strength whispers, Eli." Ava took her son's hand. "But you and your mother have proven that sometimes the greatest strength is simply refusing to be complicit." The Compass Foundation had won the battle of water and fire. Ava Sterling Miller's legacy was cemented not in the luxurious apartments of Park Avenue, but in the sands of the Sahara, proving that the true measure of success is not what you take, but what you are willing to give without asking for anything in return. And you? Are you building a legacy of profit or integrity? What is it that you truly leave behind? Call to action. Drop your answer in the comments. If this story of an empire of integrity inspires you, like this video and subscribe for the next great adventure of the Compass Foundation. Chapter 14. The Fragility of Peace in Connecticut. 2 years after the completion of Cloud City, Ava and Ethan's life had found a deep stability. The Compass Foundation was on autopilot, with projects on 4 continents, and the triplets, now teenagers, were pillars of support and debate at home. The family had moved to a restored historic home in Greenwich, Connecticut, a place of serenity and old stones, away from the NYC bustle. It was a home built on truth, not fear. Yet, peace was fragile. One autumn afternoon, as Ava reviewed blueprints and Ethan read in the study, a letter arrived with an unfamiliar legal letterhead. It wasn't from Marcus Thorne. It was from the lawyers of a large Boston firm. The letter was addressed to Ethan Miller and informed him of the reopening of an old succession case involving his late first wife, Victoria. Victoria had tragically passed away in a car accident years ago, leaving Ethan shattered and silent, before Ava burst into his life on that midnight train. The letter revealed that, before her death, Victoria had been working on a secret charitable investment fund aimed at social justice projects in Boston, using a significant portion of her family inheritance. The problem was, the fund had never been legally constituted due to her death, and Victoria's family, embittered by grief and distrust toward Ethan, the billionaire who was never around, was fighting to liquidate the money, claiming Victoria was not mentally competent to make such decisions before the accident. Ethan's face paled, reading the letter. The pain Ava thought had healed returned, fresh and sharp. The fear that the world was once again questioning the integrity of someone he loved was unbearable. They questioned her judgment, Ava, Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper. They said she was obsessed with giving away the family inheritance and was unstable. It's the same game Marcus played with you, but this time I have no proof. I only had her word. The ghost of Victoria had returned, not to haunt their marriage, but to challenge the only foundation that mattered to Ethan, the truth he had failed to defend in the past. Chapter 15. The Call of Duty and the New Mission. Ava understood this wasn't a problem of money, or even legal justice. It was a debt of honor Ethan owed to the memory of the woman he couldn't protect. Victoria believed in social justice. You believed in her, Ava said. If her family is using their pain to taint her legacy, we have to use our legacy to defend her. Ava gathered her family team. The triplets, Nina, Grace, and Eli, sat with her and Ethan in the study, their faces serious. This is a Compass Foundation project, Ava declared. But it's a different battle. It's not for a building, but for a name. And how do we fight a ghost, Mom? Asked Nina, the pragmatic one. Ghosts are fought with facts, darling, Ava replied. Eli and I can use the empathy index to analyze Victoria's communications in the months leading up to the accident. We want to know who she was giving her money to, why, and if the organizations were legitimate. I'll do the groundwork, interrupted Grace, the architect. If the money was meant for social justice in Boston, I'm going to Boston. I'll find the projects Victoria wanted to fund. A name on paper can be disproven. A building she believed in cannot. The plan was set. Ava's legacy had armed her children for the battle. Eli, the analyst, would use the empathy index, data analysis, to prove Victoria's rational intent and mental competence. Grace, the architect, would use architecture to prove the tangible intent and legitimacy of the projects. Ava, the strategist, would use the legal strategy to coordinate the counterattack, just as Stella Davies had taught her. Chapter 16. The Architecture of Intent. The trip to Boston was a pilgrimage. Grace, with her talent for finding the underlying structure, searched the poorer neighborhoods where Victoria had been doing volunteer work. Within a week, Grace found the proof. Rudimentary architectural plans and emails from Victoria, with a small community organization trying to convert a derelict warehouse into a training center and daycare. Victoria had not just planned to donate money. She had been personally involved in the initial design. Victoria wasn't crazy, Dad, Grace called Ethan, her voice emotional. She was building. She saw the need and was addressing it with a sound plan. Simultaneously, Eli and Ava in Connecticut found the final evidence in the data. Victoria's emails with her lawyer, with timestamps and meticulous financial details, proving she had finalized the trust documents hours before the accident, just when her family alleged she was unstable. Armed with the truth and the intent, Ava returned to the lawyers. She confronted Victoria's family's attorneys, not with Miller Holdings documents, but with the blueprints and the empathy index data. Your lawsuit is not against Ethan. It is against the legacy of your own daughter, Ava declared. We have found the proof of her mental competence, the proof of her intent, and the proof of the legitimacy of her projects. We have reconstructed the architecture of her generosity. Victoria's family, unable to counter the facts and ashamed by the exposure of their own greed, withdrew. Victoria's fund was released, and the money was immediately invested in the Boston Community Center and other social justice projects, just as she had planned. Ethan, released from the guilt he had carried for years, embraced Ava. You saved me from Marcus, Ava, and you gave me Nina, Grace, and Eli. But today, you saved me from a ghost. You helped me defend the woman I loved when she could no longer defend herself. Ava smiled, looking at her children, who were packing Grace's suitcase for her return to college. The true foundation, darling, is integrity. And that we build together. Epilogue to final. The unbreakable inheritance, Ava and Ethan Miller, the two who met on a broken-down subway at midnight, proved that love is the only true test of fire. Their legacy was not just wealth, technology, or skyscrapers. It was the unbreakable compass of integrity they instilled in their children. The legacy of the Sterling Miller family is not defined by a last name, but by the daily choice to fight for those who are silenced. And you? What is the ghost from your past that you still need to exercise to secure your peace? Are you using your power to build or to demolish? Call to action. Leave your reflection in the comments. If this story of love, redemption, and justice has moved you, like this video and subscribe for the next adventure of the Compass Foundation.
The key wouldn't turn. Simone stood on her front porch, her hands shaking as she twisted the key again and again, but the lock didn't budge. She had been gone for 2 weeks, taking care of her mother after her surgery 3 states away, and now her own house was rejecting her. "Hello?" she called out, knocking on the door. "Brandon? I'm home." The door swung open and there stood her husband of 12 years. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, wearing one of Simone's silk robes, stood a woman Simone had never seen before. She was young, maybe 25, with long blonde hair and a smirk that made Simone's stomach turn. "Brandon, what's going on?" Simone asked, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "Who is this?" "This is Tiffany," Brandon said, his tone casual, like he was introducing a colleague at a business dinner. "And this is her home now." The words hit Simone like a physical blow. She took a step back, nearly tripping over her suitcase. "What did you just say?" "You heard me, Simone. I changed the locks. You don't live here anymore." Brandon crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe as if he owned the place. As if Simone hadn't been the one who paid the down payment. As if she hadn't been the one covering the mortgage for the past 5 years while his business struggled. "You can't be serious," Simone whispered, looking past him into the house. Her house. The house with the blue walls she had painted herself. The house with the garden she had planted every spring. The house where she had imagined growing old. "Dead serious," Brandon said. He turned to grab something, then tossed her suitcase onto the front lawn. The zipper split open and her clothes spilled across the grass. "You've been gone for 2 weeks. Things changed. I've moved on and so should you." Tiffany giggled behind him, a high-pitched sound that made Simone's blood boil. "Sorry, but we need our space," the younger woman said, running her hand down Brandon's arm possessively. Simone stood frozen, watching as Brandon started to close the door. "You can't do this," she said, finding her voice. "This is my house. I paid for this house." Brandon laughed, actually laughed, right in her face. "Prove it. Now get off my property before I call the cops." The door slammed shut, and Simone heard the new deadbolt click into place. She stood there for a full minute, staring at the white-painted wood, unable to process what had just happened. Around her, neighbors peeked through curtains. Mrs. Chun from next door quickly looked away when Simone's eyes met hers. The humiliation burned through her shock. Simone bent down and began shoving her clothes back into her broken suitcase, her hands trembling with rage and disbelief. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of supporting him, believing in him, standing by him through every failure and setback. And this was how it ended? Locked out of her own home like a stranger? She dragged her suitcase to her car, threw it in the trunk and sat in the driver's seat. She didn't cry. She couldn't cry. She was too angry, too shocked, too utterly blindsided. Through the rearview mirror, she could see Brandon and Tiffany watching from the bedroom window, the bedroom where Simone had slept for over a decade. They were laughing. Simone started the car and drove away, not knowing where she was going. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Monica. "How's your mom? You home yet?" Simone pulled over at a gas station and called her. When Monica answered, Simone finally let the words out. "He locked me out. Brandon changed the locks and told me I have no home." "What?" Monica's voice rose to a shout. "He did what? Where are you right now?" "I don't know. A gas station on 5th Street. Simone's voice cracked. "Monica, he has another woman living in my house. Wearing my robe. Sleeping in my bed. Don't you dare move. I'm coming to get you right now." Monica hung up and Simone sat there in her car, staring at nothing. 15 minutes later, Monica pulled up in her red SUV. She got out and came to Simone's car, tapping on the window. "Get in my car. I'm taking you to a hotel and then we're going to figure this out." Simone moved mechanically, transferring her broken suitcase to Monica's vehicle. As they drove through the city, Monica kept glancing over at her. "Tell me everything." So Simone did. She told her about coming home, about the key not working, about Brandon's cold face and Tiffany's mocking smile. She told her about the suitcase thrown on the lawn like trash. She told her about the neighbors watching, about the humiliation, about the way Brandon had looked at her like she was nothing. Monica's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. "That man is going to regret this. You know that house is in your name, right? You paid for everything." "I know," Simone said quietly. "He seems to have forgotten that part." "Oh, he didn't forget. He just thought you'd be too broken to fight back." Monica pulled into a hotel parking lot. "But he doesn't know you like I do. He doesn't know that when you get pushed, you push back harder." They checked Simone into a room, and Monica stayed with her that first night, ordering takeout and making sure Simone ate something. But Simone barely touched her food. She kept replaying the scene over and over. Brandon's face. Tiffany's laugh. The sound of her suitcase hitting the lawn. When did this happen? Simone asked out loud, though she was really asking herself. When did I become so invisible to him that he thought he could just erase me? Monica sat next to her on the bed. This isn't about you being invisible. This is about him being a selfish, cheating coward. And tomorrow we're going to start making him pay for it. That night, Simone couldn't sleep. She lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every sacrifice she had made. She had given up a job opportunity in another state to stay with Brandon when he started his business. She had covered their bills when his company wasn't making money. She had believed in him when no one else did. And he had repaid her by throwing her out like garbage. But as the night wore on, something shifted inside Simone. The shock began to fade, replaced by something colder, harder, more focused. Brandon thought he had won. He thought he could take everything from her and she would just disappear quietly. He was wrong. By the time the sun came up, Simone had made a decision. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to let him destroy her. She was going to take back what was hers, and she was going to do it legally, completely, and without mercy. Brandon wanted to play games? Fine. But he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Because Simone wasn't just going to fight back. She was going to win. The hotel room felt too small, too quiet, too temporary. Simone sat on the edge of the bed, her phone in her hand, scrolling through photos she should have deleted months ago. Pictures of her and Brandon on their wedding day. Pictures of them buying the house. Pictures of birthdays, anniversaries, ordinary moments that had once meant everything. She stopped on one photo in particular. It was taken 5 years ago, right after they closed on the house. Simone was holding the keys, grinning so wide her cheeks hurt. Brandon had his arm around her, kissing her temple. They looked happy. They looked like they had a future. What a lie that had been. Simone set the phone face down on the nightstand. She couldn't look at it anymore. Every image was a reminder of how blind she had been, how much she had ignored, how many signs she had missed. There had been signs. She could see that now. Late nights at the office that smelled like perfume instead of paperwork. Unexplained charges on their credit card that Brandon brushed off as business expenses. The way he stopped touching her, stopped looking at her, stopped seeing her as anything but a roommate who paid the bills. When had she become so convenient to him? When had her love turned into something he could exploit? The knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Monica entered with 2 coffee cups and a bag of bagels. "Breakfast," she announced, setting everything on the small table by the window. "And then we're going to start fighting back." Simone took the coffee but couldn't eat. "I keep thinking about the house," she said. "About how I saved for 3 years to come up with that down payment. Brandon was still in debt from his failed restaurant venture. I was the one with good credit. I was the one who qualified for the mortgage. Do you have proof of all that?" Monica asked, sitting across from her. "I have everything. Every bank statement, every payment confirmation, every document with my signature on it." Simone sipped her coffee, the bitterness matching her mood. "I even have emails from 5 years ago when the bank said we could only get approved if the house was in my name alone because Brandon's credit score was too low." Monica leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Then we need to get all of that together. Every piece of paper, every email, every text message. We're going to build a case so strong that Brandon won't know what hit him." "He thinks I'm weak," Simone said quietly. "He thinks I'll just accept this and walk away. Then let him think that. Let him get comfortable. Let him believe he's won." Monica pulled out her phone. "I know a lawyer. Gerald Thompson. He's handled property disputes before and he's good. Like really good. The kind of good that makes cheating husbands cry in courtrooms." Despite everything, Simone almost smiled. "Set up a meeting." They spent the rest of the morning in Simone's car, driving to her bank. She had kept all her important documents in a safety deposit box, something Brandon never knew about. Inside were copies of the house deed, mortgage papers, payment records, and her will. Everything that proved the house was hers and hers alone. "He doesn't even know about this box," Simone said as they loaded documents into a folder. "I opened it when my dad died to keep his important papers safe. I never told Brandon because he always thought safety deposit boxes were a waste of money." "Looks like that waste of money is about to save your life," Monica said, photographing each document with her phone as backup. Next, they went to Simone's office. She worked as a senior project manager for a tech company, a job she had earned through years of hard work and late nights. While Brandon's business struggled, Simone's career had thrived. She made good money, had excellent benefits, and was respected by her colleagues. Her boss, Patricia, looked up when Simone entered. "You're back early. Is your mother okay?" "She's fine," Simone said. "But I need to take a few personal days. Something came up." Patricia studied her face and seemed to understand that Simone didn't want to explain. "Take what you need. Your projects are covered." In her office, Simone accessed her old emails, searching for anything related to the house purchase. She found the original pre-approval letter from the bank, addressed only to her. She found emails from Brandon begging her to buy the house, promising he would pay her back once his business took off. She found text messages where he thanked her for carrying them financially. She downloaded everything, backed it up in 3 different places, and then sat back in her chair. The evidence was overwhelming. Brandon had no legal claim to that house. None. And soon he would know it. Monica called in the afternoon. "I got you an appointment with Gerald Thompson tomorrow morning at 9. He cleared his schedule when I told him what happened." "Thank you," Simone said, meaning it. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd do the same for me," Monica replied. "Now go back to the hotel and rest. Tomorrow we start the real fight." But Simone didn't rest. She spent the evening organizing every document into chronological order, creating a timeline of the house purchase, and documenting every payment she had made over the years. She found records showing that Brandon had contributed maybe 10% to the household expenses in the last 5 years. The rest had come from her salary, her savings, her credit. She thought about Tiffany, that young woman with her mocking smile. Did she know the truth? Did she know that Brandon was a fraud, a man who lived off his wife's hard work while pretending to be successful? Or had he fed her the same lies he had probably told everyone else? Simone didn't care. Tiffany wasn't her problem. Brandon was. Around midnight, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You can't fight this. Just move on. You're making things harder than they need to be." She stared at the message, recognizing Brandon's manipulative tone even without his name attached. He wanted her to give up quietly, to make his betrayal easier for him. He wanted her to disappear so he could play house with his mistress without any consequences. Simone deleted the text without responding. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he had gotten under her skin. She wouldn't give him any warning about what was coming. Let him think she was defeated. Let him believe his cruel plan had worked. Let him sleep soundly in her bed in her house, next to his new woman. Because tomorrow the war began. And Simone was fighting to win. Gerald Thompson's office was on the 15th floor of a glass building downtown. Simone arrived early, carrying a folder thick with documents. Monica met her in the lobby, and together they rode the elevator up. "You ready for this?" Monica asked. "I've been ready since he threw my suitcase on the lawn," Simone replied. The receptionist led them to a conference room where Gerald was waiting. He was in his mid-50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He stood when they entered, shaking both their hands. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, gesturing for them to sit. "Monica told me about your situation. I'm sorry you're going through this." "I'm not looking for sympathy," Simone said, opening her folder. "I'm looking for results." Gerald smiled slightly. "Then we're going to get along just fine. Walk me through everything starting from the beginning." Simone laid out the whole story. The house purchased 5 years ago. Brandon's poor credit and debt. The mortgage in her name only. The down payment she had saved. The monthly payments she had been making. And finally, the lockout, the mistress, and Brandon's declaration that the house was no longer hers. Gerald took notes, occasionally asking questions. When Simone finished, he leaned back in his chair, studying the documents she had brought. "This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen," he said. "The house is entirely in your name. You've made every payment. You have documented proof of everything. Your husband has no legal right to exclude you from the property. So what do we do?" Simone asked. "We file an emergency motion to reclaim possession of the property. Given the evidence, I'm confident we can get a court order within days forcing your husband to vacate the premises. We'll also freeze all joint accounts to prevent him from emptying them, and we'll pursue a case for financial fraud if he's been using marital funds to support his affair." Simone felt something loosen in her chest. "How long will this take?" "The emergency motion? We can file today and I'll push for a hearing this week. The full case might take a few months, but you'll be back in your house long before that." Gerald looked at her seriously. "I need to know if you're prepared for what this will involve. Your husband will fight back. He'll try to make you look bad. He'll probably hire a lawyer who'll dig into your life. Are you ready for that?" "I've spent 12 years building a good life, a clean life," Simone said. "I have nothing to hide. But Brandon? He's been cheating, stealing from our accounts, and committing fraud. So yes, I'm ready. Let him try to fight me." Monica squeezed her hand under the table, a silent show of support. Gerald nodded. "Then let's get started. I'll need you to sign some papers and we'll file everything this afternoon." They spent the next hour going through legal documents. Gerald explained every step of the process, every form she signed, every action they would take. By the time they left his office, Simone felt something she hadn't felt in days: hope. "He's good," Monica said as they walked to the parking garage. "Brandon's not going to know what hit him." "Good," Simone said. "I want him blindsided the way he blindsided me." They went to lunch at a small cafe, and for the first time since the lockout, Simone ate a full meal. She was starting to see a path forward, a way out of the nightmare Brandon had created. "Can I ask you something?" Monica said as they waited for their check. "When did you first suspect he was cheating?" Simone thought about it. "I don't know if I ever let myself really suspect it. There were moments when things felt off, but I always found a way to explain them away. I trusted him. I believed in him. I thought marriage meant working through the hard times together. It does. But it also means not screwing around with someone half your age and stealing your wife's house." Simone laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. "When you put it that way." Her phone rang. It was Gerald. "I wanted to update you. We filed the emergency motion. The judge reviewed it and granted us a hearing for 3 days from now. I also contacted the local police department and informed them of the situation. If you need to retrieve any personal items from the house before the hearing, they'll escort you." "Thank you," Simone said. "What are the chances we win?" "Based on the evidence? 95%. The 5% is just accounting for the unpredictability of the legal system. But Simone, you need to prepare yourself. Your husband is going to receive notice of this hearing tomorrow. He's going to react, and it probably won't be pretty." "Let him react," Simone said. "I'm done being afraid of him." After she hung up, Monica raised her water glass. "To Brandon's face when he gets those papers." Simone clinked her glass against Monica's. "To taking back what's mine." That evening, Simone went to the police station to request an escort to retrieve some items from the house. The officer who helped her was a young woman named Officer Brooks who listened to her story with growing anger. He just locked you out? Out of your own house? Officer Brooks shook her head. We'll escort you tomorrow morning. We'll make sure he doesn't give you any trouble. The next morning, Simone pulled up to her house with Officer Brooks following in a patrol car. Her heart pounded as she walked up to the front door and knocked. Brandon opened it, his face going pale when he saw the police officer behind Simone. What's this? He demanded. I'm here to retrieve some of my belongings, Simone said calmly. Officer Brooks is here to ensure there's no trouble. You can't just show up here with the cops, Brandon sputtered. Actually, she can, Officer Brooks said. This property is in Mrs. Patterson's name. She has every right to enter. Now you can let her in peacefully, or we can have a conversation about illegal lockouts and property theft. Brandon stepped aside, his face red with anger. Tiffany appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe that used to belong to Simone. Simone walked past them both without a word. She went to her bedroom and began packing clothes, toiletries, and important items. She took her jewelry, her photo albums, and the painting her grandmother had left her. She worked quickly and methodically, ignoring Brandon's presence in the doorway. You think you're so smart, he said as she packed. But you're going to lose everything. No judge is going to side with you. Simone looked up at him. We'll see. I gave you the best years of my life, Brandon continued, his voice rising. I stayed with you even when things got boring. Even when you stopped making an effort. This is as much my house as it is yours. Simone zipped her suitcase and stood up. You gave me nothing but lies and betrayal. In this house. You couldn't even qualify for the mortgage. Your name isn't on a single document. But you'll learn that soon enough. She walked out with her belongings, Officer Brooks following. Brandon shouted something after her, but she didn't listen. She loaded her things into her car and drove away, watching the house disappear in her rearview mirror. You handled that well, Monica said when Simone called her. How do you feel? Strong, Simone said. And for the first time she meant it. The process server found Brandon at his office 2 days later. According to the confirmation Gerald received, Brandon had turned pale when he read the summons, and then he had started yelling loud enough that his co-workers could hear him through the walls. Good, Simone said when Gerald told her. Let him yell. The hearing was set for the next morning. Simone spent the evening preparing with Gerald, going over her testimony and reviewing all the documents one more time. She barely slept that night, but it wasn't from fear. It was anticipation. The courthouse was a large brick building downtown. Simone arrived early with Monica and Gerald, all three of them dressed professionally and carrying briefcases full of evidence. They sat on a bench in the hallway waiting to be called. Brandon showed up 15 minutes late with a lawyer Simone didn't recognize. The lawyer looked young, nervous, and underprepared. Brandon himself looked furious, his face red and his eyes locked on Simone with pure hatred. You're going to regret this, he hissed as he walked past her. Simone didn't respond. She simply looked away, denying him even her attention. When their case was called, they entered the courtroom. Judge Harrison was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a no-nonsense expression. She reviewed the file in front of her before looking up. This is a motion for emergency possession of property, Judge Harrison said. Mrs. Patterson, you're claiming that your husband illegally locked you out of your home? Yes, Your Honor, Gerald said, standing. My client returned from a family emergency to find the locks changed and her husband refusing her entry. The property in question is solely in Mrs. Patterson's name, and she has been making all mortgage payments. We have extensive documentation to support this claim. Brandon's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, while the property may technically be in Mrs. Patterson's name, my client has been living there for 5 years. This is a marital asset, and he has rights to the home. Judge Harrison looked at him over her reading glasses. Does your client's name appear on the deed? No, Your Honor, but... Does your client's name appear on the mortgage? No, Your Honor, however. Has your client made any payments toward the mortgage or property taxes? Brandon's lawyer hesitated. My client contributed to household expenses. That's not what I asked. Judge Harrison turned to Gerald. Counselor, please present your evidence. Gerald approached the bench with a folder. Your Honor, we have the original deed showing Mrs. Patterson as the sole owner. We have 5 years of mortgage payment records, all coming from Mrs. Patterson's personal bank account. We have property tax payments, homeowners insurance payments, and maintenance records, all paid by Mrs. Patterson. We also have email correspondence from the time of purchase where Mr. Patterson acknowledges that the house would be in his wife's name only due to his poor credit. Judge Harrison reviewed each document carefully. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of papers rustling. Simone watched Brandon's face grow redder with each passing minute. Finally, Judge Harrison looked up. Mr. Patterson, do you dispute any of this evidence? Brandon stood up, ignoring his lawyer's attempt to stop him. That house is my home. I live there. My girlfriend lives there. You can't just kick us out. Your girlfriend? Judge Harrison raised an eyebrow. Are you separated from your wife, Mr. Patterson? We're getting divorced, Brandon said. Have divorce papers been filed? Not yet, but... So you're still married to Mrs. Patterson, living in a house owned solely by her with another woman, and you've locked your legal wife out of her own property? Judge Harrison's voice was cold. Brandon's lawyer put his head in his hands. Your Honor, Brandon tried again, I've been living there for 5 years. I have rights. You have the rights granted to you by law, Mr. Patterson. And the law is very clear. The property belongs to Mrs. Patterson. She has provided overwhelming evidence of sole ownership and sole financial responsibility. You, on the other hand, have provided nothing but excuses. Judge Harrison looked at her notes. I'm ordering you to vacate the premises within 48 hours. Mrs. Patterson is granted full possession of the property. The locks will be changed again and this time only she will have keys. This is insane. Brandon shouted. You can't do this. I can and I just did. If you fail to vacate within the specified time, the sheriff's department will assist in your removal. Judge Harrison banged her gavel. Next case. Simone stood up, her legs shaking but her heart soaring. Gerald put a hand on her shoulder. We won. Outside the courtroom, Monica grabbed Simone in a tight hug. He's out. He's actually out. Simone couldn't speak. Relief and triumph and disbelief all washed over her at once. She had won. She had actually won. Brandon stormed past them, his lawyer trailing behind trying to explain something. Tiffany was waiting for him by the elevator, and Simone heard her start to cry when Brandon told her the news. What are we going to do? Tiffany wailed. Figure it out, Simone said under her breath. Then louder to Gerald, when can I go home? 48 hours. I'd suggest having a locksmith meet you there, and maybe some friends to help you clean out anything they leave behind. I'll be there, Monica said immediately. That night, Simone barely slept again, but this time it was excitement keeping her awake. In 2 days she would walk back into her house. Her house. Not Brandon's. Not Tiffany's. Hers. She thought about all the times Brandon had made her feel small, invisible, unimportant. All the times he had dismissed her concerns or belittled her accomplishments. All the times he had taken her support for granted while giving her nothing in return. And now he had nothing. No house. No wife who paid his bills. No safety net to catch him when he fell. Simone rolled over in the hotel bed and smiled. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. While waiting for the 48 hours to pass, Gerald called with news that made Simone's victory even sweeter. I've been doing some digging into your joint accounts, he said. And you're going to want to sit down for this. Simone was in Monica's living room, having moved out of the hotel to save money. What did you find? Over the past 18 months, Brandon has withdrawn over $50,000 from your joint savings account. The transactions were all labeled as business expenses, but I tracked where the money actually went. Gerald paused. He's been paying rent on an apartment for Tiffany. He bought her a car. He took her on vacations to Miami, Vegas, and Mexico. He's been funding her entire lifestyle with your money. Simone felt her hands clench into fists. My money. Your money, Gerald confirmed. Every dollar he spent on her came from an account you contributed to. He added maybe $5,000 total in the last year and a half. The rest was you. Can we get it back? We can certainly try. I'm going to file a motion for financial fraud and misappropriation of marital assets. Even if we can't recover all of it, the judge will take this into account when determining any final settlement. Gerald's voice hardened. Simone, this man has been systematically stealing from you while carrying on an affair. The court is not going to look kindly on that. Good, Simone said. I want everyone to know exactly what kind of man he is. That afternoon, Gerald sent over bank statements he had subpoenaed. Simone spread them out on Monica's dining room table and went through them line by line. The evidence was damning. March 15th, $2,500 withdrawal. Notation, business trip. Actual use, Weekend in Miami with Tiffany based on hotel records. April 3rd, $8,000 withdrawal. Notation, equipment purchase. Actual use, down payment on a Lexus registered to Tiffany. May 20th, $1,800 withdrawal. Notation, client dinner. Actual use, designer handbags purchased at a boutique, charged to a credit card linked to the joint account. The list went on and on. Jewelry, clothes, spa treatments. Every luxury Brandon couldn't afford on his own, paid for with Simone's hard-earned money. I was working 60-hour weeks while he was buying her jewelry, Simone said, staring at a receipt for a diamond bracelet. I was budgeting and saving while he was taking her on vacations. Monica looked over her shoulder at the statements. This is fraud. Like actual criminal fraud. Gerald says we can pursue charges if I want to. Do you want to? Simone thought about it. Part of her wanted to see Brandon in handcuffs, wanted to watch him face consequences for once in his life. But another part of her just wanted this over. She wanted him out of her life completely. I want my money back, she said finally. I want the house. And I want him to know that he lost everything because of his own greed and stupidity. The next day, 48 hours after the court order, Simone drove to her house. Gerald met her there, along with a locksmith, 2 police officers, and Monica. They knocked on the door, and after a long moment, Brandon opened it. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes wrinkled, and he smelled like alcohol. You're really doing this? He said. You have to leave now, Officer Brooks said. She was the same officer who had escorted Simone before. The court order is final. Where am I supposed to go? Brandon asked. That's not my concern, Simone said. She had rehearsed this moment, imagining all the things she might say to him. But now, standing in front of him, she realized she didn't want to waste any more words. He wasn't worth it. Tiffany appeared behind him, her face puffy from crying. Please, she said to Simone. Can't we work something out? We have nowhere to go. Simone looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. She saw a young woman who had probably believed every lie Brandon told her. A woman who thought she was getting a successful man, not a broke fraud who was spending his wife's money. But Simone's sympathy only went so far. You should have thought about that before you moved into my house, Simone said. Brandon grabbed a few bags that were already packed by the door. You're going to regret this, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew he had lost. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner, Simone replied. She watched as Brandon and Tiffany loaded their bags into an old pickup truck parked on the street. Neighbors watched from their windows, and Simone saw Mrs. Chin give her an approving nod. When they drove away, the locksmith immediately got to work changing all the locks. Simone walked through her house slowly, taking in the damage. The living room was a mess. Pizza boxes and beer bottles everywhere. The couch she had spent months saving for had a large stain on it. In the kitchen, dishes were piled in the sink, and the refrigerator smelled like something had died in it. The bedroom was worse. The sheets were ones Simone didn't recognize, cheap and garish. Tiffany's clothes were still scattered across the floor. The pictures of Simone and Brandon that used to hang on the walls had been taken down and thrown in the closet. This is going to take some work, Monica said, surveying the damage. I don't care, Simone said. It's mine. It's finally mine. They spent the rest of the day cleaning. Monica had brought supplies, and together they scrubbed, vacuumed, and disinfected every surface. They threw away anything that belonged to Brandon or Tiffany. They opened all the windows to air out the smell of them. By evening, the house was starting to look like Simone's home again. She stood in the kitchen, exhausted but satisfied, and looked around. This was where her new life would begin. Gerald called that night with more news. Brandon's lawyer contacted me. They want to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? They're offering to waive any claim to the house in exchange for you dropping the fraud charges. Simone laughed. He has no claim to the house. The judge already ruled on that. Exactly. Which means we have the upper hand. I told his lawyer we want full reimbursement for all funds he misappropriated, plus he pays for your legal fees, plus he signs a quit-claim deed officially removing any potential future claim to the property. And if he doesn't agree? Then we take him to court for fraud and he might end up with criminal charges on top of everything else. Give him 24 hours to decide, Simone said. I'm done waiting on him. Brandon's lawyer called back in 12 hours. He agreed to all of Gerald's terms. The reimbursement would come in payments over 2 years, but it would come. The quit-claim deed would be signed immediately. And Brandon would cover all of Simone's legal fees. He folded, Gerald told her. Completely. He knows he has no case, and he knows that if this goes any further, he could face criminal charges. He's trying to escape with whatever dignity he has left. He has no dignity left, Simone said. But even with Brandon's agreement, they still had to go back to court to make everything official. The final hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later, giving both sides time to prepare all the paperwork. Simone used those 2 weeks to reclaim her house completely. She hired painters to cover the walls in new colors. She bought new furniture to replace anything that felt tainted. She planted new flowers in the garden and installed a new mailbox with only her name on it. Monica came over most evenings to help, and slowly the house transformed. It stopped being the place where Brandon had betrayed her and became Simone's sanctuary instead. On the day of the final hearing, Simone woke up early. She dressed carefully in a navy blue suit, pulled her hair back in a professional bun, and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked strong. She looked capable. She looked like someone who had fought for what was hers and won. At the courthouse, Gerald met her with a smile. "This is just a formality. Everything's already been agreed upon. We're just making it official." Brandon was already there with his lawyer. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Tiffany wasn't with him. According to Monica's sources, Tiffany had already moved on to someone else, someone with actual money. Brandon was alone. Judge Harrison called them forward. "I've reviewed the settlement agreement. Mr. Patterson, you agree to reimburse Mrs. Patterson for all funds misappropriated from the joint account, pay her legal fees, and sign a quitclaim deed releasing any interest in the property located at 428 Oakwood Drive." "Yes, Your Honor," Brandon said quietly. "And you understand that you are also agreeing to a no-contact order? You are not to contact Mrs. Patterson directly for any reason. All communication must go through lawyers." "I understand." Judge Harrison turned to Simone. "Mrs. Patterson, you agree to these terms?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Then I'm approving this settlement. Mr. Patterson, you have 30 days to make your first reimbursement payment. If you miss a payment, Mrs. Patterson has the right to pursue additional legal action including wage garnishment." Judge Harrison signed the papers. "You're both free to go." It was over. Just like that, Simone's marriage was officially ended, and her house was legally, undeniably, completely hers. Outside the courtroom, Gerald shook her hand. "Congratulations. You fought hard and you won." "Thank you," Simone said. "For everything." She walked out of the courthouse with Monica, feeling lighter than she had in months. The sun was shining, the sky was clear, and Simone felt like she could breathe properly for the first time since this nightmare began. "How does it feel?" Monica asked. "Like I'm finally free," Simone said. They went to lunch at Simone's favorite restaurant, and for once, Simone actually enjoyed her meal. She laughed at Monica's jokes, made plans for redecorating the guest room, and talked about taking a vacation once everything settled down. "You should go somewhere amazing," Monica said. "Paris, Italy, Bali. Somewhere you've always wanted to go." "Maybe I will," Simone said. "I've been taking care of everyone else for so long. It's time to take care of myself." That evening, Simone sat on her newly purchased couch in her living room, a glass of wine in her hand, and looked around. The walls were painted a soft gray now with white trim. New curtains hung in the windows. Fresh flowers sat on the coffee table. Pictures of her family and friends decorated the walls. There were no traces of Brandon left. No pictures, no belongings, no memories she wanted to keep. He had been erased from her home as completely as he had tried to erase her. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she opened it. "I hope you're happy now. You've ruined my life." It was Brandon using a new number to get around the no-contact order. Simone stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a response. "I didn't ruin your life. You did that all by yourself." She blocked the number and set her phone aside. She wouldn't let him intrude on her peace. She had fought too hard for it. As the sun set, Simone watched the light change in her living room. Her living room. Her house. Her life. She had won. Not just the house, but her dignity, her strength, and her future. Brandon had tried to take everything from her, but in the end, he had given her something better than what she had before. The knowledge that she could stand up for herself and win. Tomorrow she would wake up in her own bed, in her own house, with her own future stretching out before her. A future she would build on her own terms with no one to hold her back. Brandon thought he could destroy her. Instead he had freed her. And that was the sweetest victory of all. The official eviction had been 2 weeks ago, but Simone kept finding traces of Brandon and Tiffany that needed to be removed. A tie left in the closet. An earring under the bathroom sink. Each item went straight into the trash. Today was different though. Today, Gerald had arranged for a professional cleaning service to do a deep clean of the entire house. Simone had also hired an interior designer to help her make the space truly hers. The designer, a woman named Rachel, walked through each room with a tablet, making notes. "This is a beautiful house," she said. "Great bones. We can really transform this." "I want it to feel fresh," Simone said. "Like a new beginning. Then that's what we'll create." They spent the morning discussing color schemes, furniture arrangements, and design elements. Rachel suggested replacing the carpets in the bedrooms with hardwood floors, updating the light fixtures, and adding crown molding to give the rooms more character. "What about the bedroom?" Rachel asked. "That's usually the most important room for my clients." Simone thought about the master bedroom, the place where Brandon and Tiffany had slept in her bed. "I want everything changed. New paint, new floors, new furniture. I don't want any reminders." "Understood. We'll make it a sanctuary." While they were discussing tile options for the bathroom, there was a knock at the door. Simone opened it to find a delivery person with a certified letter. She signed for it and opened the envelope. It was from Brandon's lawyer. A notice that Brandon would be unable to make his first reimbursement payment on time due to financial hardship. He was requesting an extension and a reduced payment plan. Simone called Gerald immediately. "He's already trying to back out of the agreement." "Not unexpected," Gerald said. "But we have options. We can agree to a payment plan if it's reasonable, or we can pursue wage garnishment." "What do you want to do?" "I want what I'm owed," Simone said. "But I also don't want to spend the next year fighting him. If he can provide proof of his financial situation, I'll consider a payment plan. But the moment he misses a payment, I want garnishment proceedings started immediately." "I'll let his lawyer know." After hanging up, Simone felt her anger rising again. Even now, even after everything, Brandon was trying to avoid responsibility. But she pushed the feeling away. She wasn't going to let him ruin this day. Monica showed up that afternoon with takeout and a bottle of wine. "I heard about Brandon's payment drama. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Simone said. "I'm just tired of him finding new ways to disappoint me." They ate lunch in the kitchen and Monica filled her in on the latest gossip. Apparently, Tiffany had started dating someone new, a man in his 60s with money. And Brandon had moved back in with his mother. "His mother," Monica repeated, shaking her head. "He went from living in this beautiful house to his childhood bedroom." Simone should have felt satisfaction at that news, but mostly she just felt sad. Sad that she had wasted so many years on someone so pathetic. "You know what I've been thinking about?" Simone said. "How I let him make me small. I was so focused on supporting him, on being the perfect wife, that I forgot about myself. I stopped going out with friends. I stopped taking art classes. I stopped doing all the things that made me happy." "You're doing them now though," Monica pointed out. "I am. And I'm not going to stop. Not for anyone." That evening after Monica left, Simone walked through her house room by room. The cleaners had done an amazing job. Everything sparkled. The windows were spotless, the floors gleamed, and even the air smelled fresh. In the master bedroom, she stood in the center of the room and closed her eyes. This was the hardest room for her, the one with the most painful memories. But soon, Rachel would transform it into something new, something that belonged only to Simone. She opened her eyes and looked around. The bed would go. The dresser would go. Everything would be replaced with furniture she chose, in colors she loved, in a style that reflected who she was becoming. Her phone rang. It was Patricia, her boss. "Simone, I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course. What's up?" "The senior director position opened up. I'd like to put your name forward for it. It comes with a significant raise and more responsibilities, but I think you're ready for it." Simone felt her heart skip. She had been working toward a promotion like this for years, but the timing had never been right. Now, with everything else in her life changing, this felt like the perfect next step. "I'm interested," Simone said. "Very interested." "Good. I'll send you the details tomorrow. We'll need to do a formal interview process, but between you and me, the job is yours if you want it." After hanging up, Simone did something she hadn't done in a long time. She laughed. Really laughed, with joy and relief and excitement. Everything was falling into place. Her house was hers. Her career was advancing. Her life was moving forward. Brandon had tried to destroy her, but instead, he had destroyed himself. And Simone? She was thriving. The renovations took 6 weeks. During that time, Simone threw herself into work, preparing for her interview for the senior director position. She also started doing things for herself again. She joined a gym and started taking yoga classes. She reconnected with old friends she had neglected during her marriage. She took a weekend trip to the coast with Monica, where they ate seafood and walked along the beach and talked about anything except Brandon. When the renovations were finally complete, Rachel called her. "It's ready? Do you want to come see it?" Simone drove to her house, her heart pounding with anticipation. When she walked through the door, she gasped. The living room was stunning. The walls were painted a warm ivory and new hardwood floors gleamed throughout. A plush gray couch sat in the center of the room, accented with colorful pillows. Large windows let in natural light, making the whole space feel open and airy. The kitchen had been updated with new cabinet hardware and a beautiful backsplash. The dining room featured a new table that could seat 8, perfect for hosting dinner parties. But the master bedroom was the biggest transformation. The walls were painted a soft sage green, and the new floors were a rich walnut. A 4-poster bed with white linens dominated the room, and a reading nook by the window invited relaxation. It looked nothing like the room where Brandon and Tiffany had slept. It looked like a room designed for peace and rest. "Rachel, this is perfect," Simone said, tears in her eyes. "It's exactly what I needed." "This is your space now," Rachel said. "Fill it with things that make you happy." Simone spent the next week doing exactly that. She bought art for the walls, plants for every room, and books to fill the new shelves Rachel had installed. She displayed photos of her family, her friends, and herself on trips she had taken before she met Brandon. She hosted her first dinner party on a Saturday night. Monica came along with several co-workers and a few old friends. They ate good food, drank wine, and laughed until their faces hurt. "To new beginnings," Monica said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," everyone echoed. Simone looked around at the people gathered in her home, really her home now, and felt overwhelming gratitude. These were the people who had supported her through the worst time of her life. These were the people who deserved her time and energy, not a man who had taken everything and given nothing. After everyone left, Simone cleaned up the kitchen and then sat on her back patio. It was late spring and her garden was in full bloom. She had planted new roses, lavender, and jasmine. The air smelled sweet and fresh. She thought about Brandon living in his mother's house, probably miserable. She thought about Tiffany probably chasing after another man with money. And she felt nothing but pity for them. They would never understand what they had lost. Not just the house or the money, but the chance to be with someone who loved fully, who forgave freely, who gave everything to make a relationship work. Their loss. Not hers. Simone's phone buzzed with an email. It was from HR at her company. "Congratulations on your promotion to senior director. Your new salary and benefits information is attached." She had gotten the job. Simone set her phone down and closed her eyes, letting the evening breeze wash over her. Everything she had worked for, everything she had fought for, was finally hers. Her home, her career, her life. She was free. Truly, completely free. And it felt amazing. 3 months after the renovations were complete, Simone's life had settled into a new rhythm. She woke up each morning in her peaceful bedroom, made coffee in her beautiful kitchen, and went to work where she was excelling in her new role as senior director. The promotion had brought new challenges, but Simone discovered she loved the additional responsibility. She was managing a larger team, overseeing bigger projects, and making decisions that impacted the entire company. Patricia had been right, she was ready for this. One evening, Monica dragged her to an art gallery opening. "You need to get out more," Monica had said. "You've done the work of healing. Now it's time to start living." Simone had been reluctant at first, but the gallery was beautiful. Modern art pieces hung on white walls, and soft music played in the background. People mingled with wine glasses, discussing the artwork and making connections. "This isn't so bad," Simone admitted to Monica. "See? I told you." Monica spotted someone across the room and waved. "I'll be right back." "Mingle." Simone wandered through the gallery, stopping to admire a large abstract painting. The colors were bold and vibrant, reminding her of her own journey from darkness into light. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said beside her. Simone turned to see a man about her age, tall and handsome with kind eyes and an easy smile. "It is," she agreed. "I'm Jerome," he said, extending his hand. "Are you an artist?" "No, just an admirer." "I'm Simone." They shook hands and Simone felt a small spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. "Interest. What do you do when you're not admiring art?" Jerome asked. "I'm a senior director at a tech company." "And you?" I'm a landscape architect. I design outdoor spaces, parks, gardens, commercial properties. They talked for the next hour, discussing art, work, and life. Jerome was easy to talk to, genuine and interested in what she had to say. When Monica finally came back, she raised her eyebrows at Simone in a silent question. Would you like to get coffee sometime? Jerome asked before they parted ways. Simone hesitated for only a moment before smiling. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers, and as Simone left the gallery with Monica, she felt lighter than she had in months. That was smooth, Monica teased. He seems nice. He does, Simone agreed. But I'm taking things slow. I'm not ready to rush into anything. You don't have to rush. Just be open to possibilities. Jerome texted her the next day and they met for coffee that weekend. Then they went to dinner the following week. Then they took a walk in the park Jerome had designed. Each time they met, Simone felt more comfortable. Jerome was nothing like Brandon. He listened when she talked. He was interested in her life, her career, her dreams. He didn't need her to take care of him or support him. He was a grown man with his own success and his own life. I like spending time with you, Jerome said after their fourth date. You're different from anyone I've met. Different how? Simone asked. Strong. Independent. You know who you are and what you want. It's refreshing. Simone smiled. A year ago she wouldn't have believed him. A year ago she felt weak and lost and broken. But now she knew her own strength. I like spending time with you too, she admitted. But I need you to know something. I'm not looking to jump into a serious relationship right away. I've been through a lot, and I need to take things at my own pace. I respect that, Jerome said. I'm not in a rush either. Let's just see where this goes, no pressure. As spring turned to summer, Simone and Jerome continued to date casually. He came to one of her dinner parties and charmed all her friends. She attended a lecture he gave at the botanical gardens. They took weekend trips to wineries and spent lazy Sunday afternoons in Simone's garden. Monica approved. He's good for you. He makes you smile. He does, Simone agreed. But the best part is I'm happy even when he's not around. I don't need him to be happy. I just enjoy his company. That's exactly how it should be, Monica said. Meanwhile, Brandon's first reimbursement payment came through, though it was smaller than agreed. Gerald had arranged a payment plan, and while it would take longer to get all her money back, at least it was coming. Simone didn't dwell on it. The money was just money. What mattered was that she had her house, her career, her friends, and a future full of possibilities. One evening, as she was working in her garden, Jerome stopped by with takeout from her favorite restaurant. They ate on the back patio, watching the sun set over her rose bushes. I'm glad I met you, Jerome said. Me too, Simone replied. And she meant it. Not because she needed someone to complete her, but because she had found someone who complemented the life she had built for herself. A year after Brandon changed the locks, Simone stood in her kitchen preparing for another dinner party. This one was special. It was a celebration of everything she had accomplished. Her house was paid off. She had received the last reimbursement payment from Brandon, along with a note from his lawyer saying he was moving to another state. She didn't care where he went. He was part of her past and her past was behind her. Monica arrived early to help set up. I can't believe it's been a year, she said, arranging flowers in a vase. Look at how far you've come. Simone looked around her home, her beautiful, peaceful, completely hers home, and smiled. I almost didn't think I'd make it through. But I did. You did more than make it through. You thrived. The doorbell rang and guests started arriving. Co-workers from Simone's team at work. Old friends she had reconnected with. Her mother, who had recovered fully from her surgery. And Jerome, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a smile that made Simone's heart warm. They ate, drank, and celebrated. Simone gave a short speech thanking everyone for their support over the past year. I couldn't have done this without all of you, she said. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You stood by me when things were hard. And now we get to celebrate together. To Simone, Patricia said, raising her glass. The strongest woman I know. To Simone, everyone echoed. After dinner, while people mingled in the living room, Jerome pulled Simone aside on the patio. Can we talk for a minute? Of course, Simone said, a flutter of nervousness in her chest. I know we've been taking things slow, Jerome started. And I respect that. But I need you to know how I feel. I'm falling for you, Simone. The way you rebuilt your life, the way you faced challenges, the way you love the people around you, it's incredible. I don't want to rush you, but I wanted you to know where I stand. Simone looked at him, This kind and patient man who had given her space to heal while showing her what real respect looked like. "I'm falling for you too," she admitted. "I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. I didn't think I'd ever trust anyone again. But you've shown me that not everyone is like Brandon. Some people are actually worthy of trust." Jerome smiled and took her hand. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight. But I wanted you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere unless you want me to." "I don't want you to go anywhere," Simone said softly. They stood together on the patio watching the party through the windows. Simone saw her mother laughing with Monica, her co-workers admiring her renovated home, and her friends enjoying themselves in the space she had created. This was her life now, full of love, laughter, and people who truly cared about her. She had fought for this. She had earned this. And she wasn't taking it for granted. The next morning, Simone went for a run through her neighborhood. As she passed her old house, because that's how she thought of it now, as just a building she used to live in, she saw a "for rent" sign in the yard. She didn't slow down. She didn't look back. She just kept running forward. Later that day, she was working in her garden when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer. "Hello." There was a pause, then, "Simone? It's Brandon." Her first instinct was to hang up. He wasn't supposed to contact her directly. But curiosity made her stay on the line. "What do you want, Brandon?" I wanted to apologize. For everything. I was a coward and a fool, and I threw away the best thing in my life. I know it's too late, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry." Simone stood up, brushing dirt from her hands. A year ago, this call might have made her cry. It might have made her angry. It might have made her consider giving him another chance. Now, she felt nothing but a mild annoyance at the interruption. "You're right about one thing," Simone said. "It is too late. And honestly, Brandon, I don't need your apology. I don't need anything from you. I've moved on. I'm happy. And I hope someday you figure out how to be happy too, but that's not my problem anymore." "Simone, please." "Goodbye, Brandon." She hung up and blocked the number. Then she went back to her gardening, her hands in the soil, the sun on her face and peace in her heart. That evening, Jerome came over with groceries. They cooked dinner together in her kitchen, laughing and talking about their days. After dinner, they sat on the couch, Simone's head on his shoulder, watching a movie. "I got a call from Brandon today," Simone said during a quiet moment. Jerome tensed slightly. "What did he want?" "To apologize, I think. To tell me he made a mistake." Simone looked up at Jerome. "I told him I didn't need his apology and hung up." "How did that feel?" "Empowering," Simone said honestly. "A year ago I thought he destroyed me. But all he did was free me from a bad situation. He gave me the chance to build the life I actually wanted instead of the life I thought I was supposed to want." Jerome kissed her forehead. "I'm glad you found your way here." "Me too," Simone said. As the movie played and the evening turned to night, Simone thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim what was hers. It had been the hardest year of her life, but it had also been the most transformative. She had learned that she was stronger than she ever knew. She had learned that she didn't need someone else to make her happy. She had learned that home wasn't just a building, it was a feeling of safety, peace, and belonging that she could create for herself. Brandon had tried to take her home from her. Instead, he had forced her to build an even better one. And for that, in a strange way, she was grateful. Because now she knew beyond any doubt, she could handle anything life threw at her. She could fight for herself. She could win. And she had. Her house. Her career. Her happiness. Her future. All of it was hers. Truly, legally, completely hers. And nobody could ever take that away from her again.